this. No. Yeah. Yeah. Tilted the
Yes. Yes, we're ready. All right. Thank you. Greetings. Greetings. Hey there. We got a late start today, but I want you to know that it's going to be worth the wait. Do you hear me? It's going to be worth the wait. We just get started by saying this: entrepreneur, an advocate, host of the Power to Persist podcast, founder, Phase 2 Consulting, and he is Green Lighting Realty Company in Chicago. He is the man. Today, Dr. Lamel McMorris, the author of his new book, The Power to Persist. This is Conversations with Tony Mobley. Today is August 6, 2025, and this is episode 30 of Conversations with Tony Mobley, powered by Beam Alive. We want to thank the team behind Conversation with Tony Mobley. You can watch Conversations with Tony Mobley on our YouTube channel, Conversation with Tony Mobley. Or you can go to our website, conversationwithTonyMobley.com, and we're going to get right into it. We're going to get right into it. So if you are watching on YouTube, there in YouTube, you can ask your questions of Dr. McMorris in the chat on YouTube. But also, you can look for a link that says Mukana. And there, you can ask your questions. And not only can you ask your questions can be voted up and down. That's right. And so we're going to get started right away. No more delays. The very first question. But before the very first question, let me just say this. This is my good brother, my fellow Morehouse brother, that is here with me today, who is taking time out of his busy schedule to be a part of this conversation. And I want to let you know this time is precious. Hurry up and get your questions in. Get your questions in. All right, we're getting started. Welcome, my brother.
Thank you for having me.
This is Dr. Lamel McMorris. Thank you, sir, for being here with me today.
Glad to be here with you, my friend.
All right. Very first question. And this question is really for those people who would have not had the opportunity to know who you are. So, who is Dr. Lamel McMorris?
First of all, let me again say thank you for not just having me here this evening, but our over 2 decades plus long friendship, which is crazy to say that out loud. And I want to thank your team behind the scenes. I know they are like totally done with me. Like this guy will never come back again. Everyone. I am not ashamed to admit. As a matter of fact, one of the eight habits in the Power to Persist that I talk about in the book on the road to resilience is vulnerability. So let me admit now, for the record, it is not Tony Mobley's fault. It's not the team behind the camera's fault. It is all my fault why we're behind. I wish you guys could have seen all the maneuvering that was going on to get us going live, but I'm excited to be here, and I apologize for our delay. That's what happens when you're a rookie in this stuff. See, these guys are the vets. We're the rookies over here, just trying to figure out how to do podcasts and go live and do all this fun stuff. So who am I? It's a great question because everything about this moment in my life and the book and any discussion around me and resilience, it's a full circle moment. Like right now, literally, no matter how this may appear behind the scenes and what what you see, we're literally on this. I'm talking to you live from the south side of Chicago in the basement of my childhood home here, right in the Woodlawn community. And so everything about who I am, how I was shaped, the genesis is here. As a kid growing up on the south side in the 70s and 80s, in the wake of a very political climate that I was drawn to as a kid, especially with Harold Washington becoming the first black mayor. And for us at the time, that was equivalent to the first black president, right? That was a very big deal. And so I grew up in the shadows of Rainbow Push and Reverend Jackson down the street, yelling into a microphone to repeat after him, I am somebody, to, Johnson Publishing Company being based here on and Johnson products being based here. So, I grew up in this ethos and in this environment of proud black leadership and leadership and the spirit of advocacy. And so I guess if there's one thing I would say that there's a not a straight line, but a through line of my childhood from literally where I'm sitting right now is this sense of advocacy. I've always been an advocate, advocating on behalf of issues, advocating on behalf of people, and the line may not necessarily be straight, Dr. Mobley, but there is a line from where I am and how I grew up here. And this basement did not look as good when I was a kid. It was a very scary, dark place. But from this place to my start to where we are tonight having this conversation, it's all a full circle moment. And if I were to introduce myself in any way to some of your listeners who don't know me, it's just this sense of advocacy born out of this little town called Chicago on the South Side.
All right, sir. We have a question that's coming in from Wexford, Ireland, from
Ireland,
Mr. Yes, sir.
I
From
was
Mr.
there.
Ken Jordan.
Nice.
Having Reverend Al Sharpton write your forward is powerful.
Mm,
What did he see in your message that connected to his decades of persistence and civil rights work?
my goodness, I can't wait to tell him about that question. What a great question. Tell me the brother's name again from Ireland.
His name is Ken Jordan. He
Ken.
is also one of the advocates and supporters of Conversation with Tony
I
Mobley.
love it. Ken from
And
Ireland.
if you get a chance to watch or look at the Conversations with Tony
Yes.
Mobley.com website,
Yeah.
he is the creator, designer of the website.
Get out of here. Ken, I wish I had known you. I was running around Ireland about a year or so ago, freezing and trying to figure out how to play golf in the middle of a windy environment. But that's a whole nother story. So, you know, I'm a firm believer that the best sermon, Dr. Mobley and Ken, that we could preach is when we don't have to open up our mouths. I would like to think that Reverend Sharpton, having observed me for now over 2+ decades, whatever the message of my life around advocacy that he's been able to witness and glean, and in many ways help to shape, was one of the main reasons why, if anyone could, testify or amen about my resilient journey, and in light of his, he could. And so a book around resilience, both, written by me, through a lens of my life, and then have his getting the opportunity to look at his journey, and then how we can help others on their resilient journey, I think really resonated with him. And so he was, matter of fact, when I asked him to do the forward, I mean, like zero hesitation. There was no, well, I need to check with my staff, check with my team. Like within a half a second, it was just an immediate yes. And just that alone is a testament to not only who he is, but I hope our relationship, and not just our relationship, but what he has observed and seen in me.
Thank you, Ken, for that question. Ken is back.
All right.
Before I read Ken's question, I want to make something clear. I am not Dr. Mobley. I'm just Tony Mobley.
Well, in the
Lamel
black
is
in the black church, Mobley,
Lamel,
everybody.
but Lamel is Dr. McMorris, and he has earned that title.
Well,
And
thank you, brother.
so he is my good friend, but I will refer to him in this conversation as Dr. McMorris all the time.
Well, I appreciate that.
So, Ken's, thank you again, Ken, for this question. Dr. McMorris, your book uses a traffic light as a central metaphor. Was there a specific moment in your life when you felt stuck at a red light
Mm.
that wouldn't change? And how did that shape these 8 habits?
Wow. In the book, so I'm going to answer this in a very roundabout way. I'm going to, acknowledge that now. So the process of writing the book, I thought Ken, Reverend Mobley, I could write this book, in the self-help kind of context, write these 8, habits around resilience, and just give those to you. And, I'm done. To my publisher's credit, she pushed the book right back to me and said, no, if people don't see and understand your unique, authentic journey around resilience, then it won't work. Um, I didn't know that I was going to have to speak about my journey. So maybe that's the naivete of being a new author, or of writing in this regard. But my stoplight, and I talk about it in the book. It was, I've had a few, but one that I can really recall, I was in Atlanta, 27 years old, appointed to be the national executive director and chief operating officer of a historic civil rights organization, the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. I was appointed by Martin Luther King III, who is a friend, and who's seen me at that point through college and school. And my trajectory was just that. Having worked with Reverend Jackson, first job out of graduate school at Princeton Seminary was coming back home to Chicago Urban League. So it was not. And then my having been an intern for Martin when he was a Fulton County commissioner. And so it was not unusual for me to be in the trajectory of a civil rights, social justice organization, but albeit, one that had never really recovered from the untimely death of its founder. So I'm sitting in Dr. King's office on Auburn Avenue, the historic Southern Christian Leadership Conference office, that is, and the organization is being run by his son and namesake. And at 27 years old, I get fired, removed. I mean, like literally removed. I did a Google search, and this is when Google kind of first started. And I wanted to see like what is everything. 27-year-old handpicked by Martin Luther King III, fired. 27-year-old removed, and so if there ever was a stoplight, because it really hit me like, well, God, if this is not what you've called me to do, then what in the world, uh, you know, what am I supposed to be doing? I didn't necessarily think I was going to be the next Dr. King, but I definitely thought I was in the Kingian, Jesse Jackson trajectory where, I was fulfilling that which I was called to do. My acknowledgement to ministry was not within the four walls of the church. My acknowledgement to ministry was outside of the four walls of the church, the duality between theology and public policy. I was on that trajectory. And then, you know, when you get fired like that and such, and then it was, I was 27 years old and it was public like that. So my mom is here in Chicago crying. She doesn't understand what's going on. I've got mentors. My dear mentor, Vernon Jarrett, the renowned columnist and founder of the NAACP's AXO program, had watched me grow up from a grammar school student and up until that point, and he's writing about it in Chicago Defender about my being fired. Uh, that was a stoplight moment at a very young age where you can get stuck at red and stop, and your pathway is blunted, your perspective is skewed, everything is negative about your self perception and how you believe others see you, or you use that stoplight to know that you're ultimately going to get a yellow and you work towards green and you go. And I'd like to think that while for a moment, admittedly, I was stuck on red for a while, and some friends and folks had to help me. And, that's where the importance of your network and your relationships. Some folks had to pull me out because I never experienced anything like that. But I like to think we've been stuck on green since then.
I just want to comment that I knew you very well at that time,
Oh my
and
goodness, that's right. You sure did.
I, I
You
want to
sure did.
say
Mm.
that I think the way in which you handled that situation was absolutely amazing
Oh, I appreciate that.
because you did not wear it on your sleeve. You maintained, at least around me, you were extremely upbeat. Um, and maybe, and I will say that because you were so upbeat at the time, I did not recognize all of what had happened, if that makes sense. Because I'm going to say this: at this time, you were actually pouring into me, and it was, it was a time when I was dealing with some things, and so I just want to say that it was extremely encouraging to me, and that you did not in any way manifest a person who was struggling or dealing with any type of concerns or issues. And I want to say bravo to you for manifesting this this powerful and I thank Mama McMorris for allowing you to have the strength, the wherewithal to be able to maintain your dignity, to be able to maintain all of the things that you had exhibited during that time. Because as I said, the majority of people who were, I'm going to say, not in the know, had no idea. And so you were extremely upbeat. You were very positive. You were supporting and pouring into other people at the same time. And so I just want to say I thank God for the spirit that He allowed you to have during that time of the stoplight.
Thank you, brother. Can you all hear me again?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
see.
We hear you
Okay,
fine.
okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay. And so we have a question from Larry Rice.
Dr. Rice. Hello, my brother.
What part of the book was the most emotional challenging for you to write? And Larry Rice is from Silver Springs, Maryland.
You know, it's connected to Ken's previous question, Dr. Mobley. Every part of the book where I had to, reconcile with the moments of the stoplight, the biggest headwinds, a firing, a loss of a business. Uh, you know, I did not think, Dr. Rice, that I was gonna have to, excuse me, go there. I thought I was gonna be good. I could just, talk about these 8 habits and just go forward. I did not know that, again, one of the 8 habits we talk about in the power to persist is vulnerability. I did not think I was going to have to be vulnerable. And so it wasn't just one moment, it was all the moments where I had to be vulnerable and I had to give up and say more about, who I am and my journey. That was hard. I don't want to give away, but there's some things very early on in the book that I've never uttered, outside of, close friends and family, and definitely I've not said in a public way that I've not admitted. And so that's hard. That was hard, and it probably will still be hard because now I know it's in print now, Doc. So so I'm gonna be potentially asked about it, and I'm sure there'll be even more scrutiny around that. But that's good. That's part of the resilient journey.
Well, I'm going to say to you that part of that is going to be, as probably the publisher wanted you to do, was to be able to pull people in and have an experience with you in the book that they also share. So I think that's part of the reason why it's important to be authentic and to be vulnerable in that way, because your readers will sense that, they will experience that, they will understand that moment in which they're reading. And so
Yeah, I
yeah,
think someone I heard someone say recently the only way to have a testimony is if you've been tested, right? Like you know,
absolutely.
we don't just, by the way, though, we don't just see each other and see ourselves reflected in the down times. We also see ourselves reflected in others in the high moments and in the victories. And resilience is not just about, when you're facing headwinds. Sometimes the most difficult points of life, Reverend Mobley and Dr. Rice, are when you're riding high, right? And when you're winning, because there's a temptation to kick up your feet, start beating your chest about how great you are and how good you are, right? And so you have to be resilient even during the victories, but we especially need to let folks know that we're human and we can relate to who and what they are and what they're going through, and that has been reflected in my journey, especially. And again, as I sit here back home in my childhood home, there's a lot about my journey that even now riding around on my bicycle and coming to grips with being immersed on my block and what we're doing, attempting to do in the neighborhood, a lot of things hit home. A lot of memories come back, a lot about the journey and how we started. But you take comfort in how far God has brought you, but also you feel some level of responsibility to make sure that you're bringing others along as well.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Our next question is from, okay, our next question is, what does the power to resist, the title of your book, mean to you?
Yeah, it's I don't feel like I'm handing over, you know, some keys to the kingdom and a secret to folks, right? I think what I am attempting to put forth here that this power to persist exists in all of us, but it is an ongoing journey. These 8 habits that I lift up, some days I'm better at others. Some days I'm not doing so well. Most days, I can tell you with vulnerability, I'm struggling constantly with that one. I mean, the others are, I may, dogged determination. I think you, having watched me damn near grow up, would admit, yeah, I've been pretty determined for a long time. Focus, well, we can all work on, and so there. I say all that to say that there are elements of this that that it's empowering. So that the attempt is to give power and fuel for people to persist, but to also signal that this is power that we've got to continue to turn on and off and continue to work at, and it's a process. These habits around, it's not every day. We don't always have a great attitude. Every day our work ethic is not on point. Every day we're not feeling very focused, and sometimes our network and our relationships are a little shaky. So these are things that exist within all of us, our ability to achieve, to grasp, but we all need some level of tool sharpening and constant reminder of our need to become more resilient and our ability to harness this power to persist through it all. Through it all. Again, the ups and the downs, the highs and the lows, the victories and defeats. We can persist, and we have the power to persist through it all.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. And when will the book be available for purchase?
The book will be available. The book actually comes out officially September 23rd, but the book is available wherever books are sold right now. Everyone can go to from Amazon to Porchlight to Barnes and Noble books. It's available, and I would greatly appreciate your support. And frankly, not support. I appreciate everyone going on this journey with me, and we go on this journey together around how to persist and lead a life of resilience.
I did go to the Barnes and Noble website yesterday, and I was not able to get it. It told me that I could pre-order it,
Mm.
but it wasn't going to be available till sometime in September.
Yeah, the book you can pre-order. I'm sorry, let me be real clear. If you order the book on Amazon or Barnes and Noble today, it's not coming tomorrow or next week. The book won't come until September 23rd, but you can order the book and secure the book now. And pre-orders are welcome and appropriate, and it will come before we know it. We're in August, so September 23rd is just right around the corner, so it's on the way.
Fantastic. So you heard it here. You heard it here. The book is available now
It
for
is.
pre-order. The book is available now for pre-order. I'm looking at you. It's available now for pre-order. Did you hear me? All right. Ken is back. Ken is back. I learned persistence from Caribbean parents
Mm.
who believed in keep your head down and work. How do we honor that legacy while adapting to a world that rewards self promotion?
Well, I talk about one of the 8 habits that I lift up is, not just dogged determination, but a work ethic. Ken, there's no substitute for hard work. I don't care what era we live in, even and especially an era where, we can hit a button and have things instantly and, gratification, both instant and self-gratification, um, are, run rampant today. But you find in this life, I've discovered that the cream always rises to the top. And Ken, I've seen a lot of people come and go on this journey, as I'm sure you have too. Lights that shine bright for moments, uh, but it's that ability to be focused, to constantly, stay disciplined to your craft, to be determined in your efforts. So, I think, the motto of your parents and of mine about consistent persistence and what it really takes to be resilient and to have longevity, you know, instant gratification is just that. It's instant, but it tends to be fleeting. I talk about this in the book, when I was, I think, 25 years old, a mentor, Dr. Richard Tolliver, retired Episcopalian uh, priest here in my neighborhood, but more than that, a very big advocate of housing equity and social justice. He told me at 25, he said, Lamel, if you're not careful, you're going to be a gadfly. Now, no matter how many schools I had gone to at that point, I was like, a gadfly? What is a gadfly? What does that mean? He said, a gadfly means that you're here, there, and everywhere. At some point, he told me, Ken, at some point, you have to sit down and demonstrate that you can build something. Probably flew over my head at the time. I really didn't get it. But when I went to DC in 2002, when I started my firm, I understood exactly what Dr. Tolliver meant. Because, Ken, when you establish a foundation and you ground yourself in a set of work ideals, then if you come to me, Ken, and you say, hey, I've got this idea for this business or that business, unless it fits in that foundation, then I'm probably not inclined to do it. I probably won't be moved. But if I have that foundation as well, that means I can pivot. So I can have a lobbying firm in DC, and then Mobley, you'll appreciate this. Our dear brother from Zion Hill Baptist Church comes with an idea, Derek Stafford, like, hey, why don't you represent the referees in the NBA? But I had the foundation that I could pivot off of, and it made sense because that too was in line with what I was called to do and be, and that is an advocate, right? And that's what I was doing, advocacy. So again, you could come with an idea, as I did 14 years later, to start Greenlining Realty USA to address the historic inequities of housing and redlining that began right here in my neighborhood. So I could do that because I had the foundation of advocacy, and that made sense, even having had a lobbying firm, even being engaged in sports, but going on and trying to reach. So what I'm trying to say is there's power, my friends, in staying in one place and building. It doesn't disable you, it actually enables you to take advantage and to engage in other opportunities. And that has been my life testimony, the power of being focused, which is one of the 8 habits in the book, The Power to Persist, the power of being disciplined and demonstrating in one place that you can build actually propels you to greater opportunities.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ken, again for such great questions. What advice do you give parents whose children are starting a new school year?
Mm. Um, I cannot help but when I sit here in this basement, think about my childhood as a kid, starting school and in school, and actually, Reverend Mobley, I used to be ashamed to tell my friends where I lived and to bring my friends over to this place. And so it's ironic now that I've got a podcast and I'm bringing all these leaders and luminaries to this very place of where I grew up, right? Uh, the thing that I would tell parents who have children going into this school year is there is no guarantee that life is going to be easy. But I would constantly reinforce to a child, no matter what circumstances they grow up in, wealth or not wealthy, hardships or third base, you're not limited and defined by your circumstance. I would instill into, our children, even in this immediate gratification environment that we live in, that getting knocked down is inevitable. Staying down is a choice because that's where the habits that I'm putting forth in this book around dogged determination, around attitude, around work ethic, and then most importantly, faith. This faith, especially to a child in this era, that this term faith is not just something that just sits out there on some shelf and that it's not tangible. No, yes, as we define it, faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. But when you tell a child that you are the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen, for ancestors and folks who never dreamed that you would be able to go to the schools that you're going to and have the opportunities or to hit a device and have information and access at your fingertips. When you can tell a child, not just preach to a child about faith, but let them look in the mirror and let them recognize that they are walking, living, breathing faith. That's what I would tell a child going into a school year. Don't let anyone convince you that you are anything other than a walking example of God's goodness and grace on this earth.
Wow. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for that. Time is going short. Get those questions in. Get those questions in. Ken is back 20 years from now.
And as the hotline,
What single shift in how people think about persistence would you make feel this book succeeded?
say
What
that one more, say the beginning again.
Okay, so 20 years from now,
20 years from now.
what single shift in how people think about persistence would make you feel this book succeeded?
Well, number one, we're successful when every time, Ken, you pull up to a stoplight, you're thinking about persistence and resilience. That's number one. Um, I think the 20 years from now. So I think about that question when I started writing the book about 2 years ago. You know, resilience, and it's like Reverend Mobley when a friend of yours has tells you about a new car that you never heard of before, and then after they tell you, you see the car like everywhere. Like you begin to see this car that you never heard of till your friend got it, told you about it. That's how I was with this notion of resilience. I started on this and literally, I mean, I don't care if I was watching ESPN the resilient athlete and the resilient team. Then I turn on CNBC, the resilience in this energy. Then I turn on some TV show, resilience. And so it just started coming out of nowhere. I believe that as we think about resilience, both as individuals and when we come and talk about communities and when we talk about industries, I think we're meeting a moment in time now, Ken. But I think 20 years later, this notion of how do we build resilient individuals, resilient communities, resilient uh, industries, whether it's energy, telecom, financial services, how do we create this resilient environment? I think will be far more paramount uh, 20 years from now than it will be today.
Wow. Thank you, Ken, again for such great questions. Um, so, what's next for Dr. Lamel McMorris?
We're excited. I'm excited about the podcast. So the podcast, you've been in this world way longer than me. So I was thinking about, resilience and the power to persist. And I started thinking about some of the resilient individuals I know and their powerful stories and lives. And so I'm excited about the podcast and the ability to bring you and others. And by the way, unashamedly, the premise of the podcast is, if I'm gonna have you talk about, on the Power to Persist podcast, your resilient journey, then I feel like we need to do it from a place where authentically where my resilient journey started. So there's no virtual, no piping in. Everyone has to come over to. I won't give the address of my child at home, but everyone has to come over to Woodlawn off of Cottage Grove here on the south side of Chicago. And I mean, I'm excited for you to see some of the folks who've come down to the basement so far and had conversations with me. I can sneak this one because he did the forward. So Friday, Reverend Sharpton will be in the studio here, right here, talking about his resilient journey on the Power to Persist podcast and so many others. I've got friends who are CEOs of Fortune 500 corporations who have and will be coming by a lot of social media folks, elected and policymakers that we know. And so that's exciting. And I think folks should look out for and see this as the beginning of a journey that I'm going to start regarding this conversation on resilience. Don't be surprised if I do a deeper dive on a soon to come later book on an industry perspective and talk about the business of resilience. Because I think there's so many discussions that we can and need to have when it comes to resilience. And so I'm full speed ahead, and I'm very excited right now.
I want to say congratulations to you,
Thank you, my friend.
not just not just for the book, but even for this podcast.
Thank you.
And the reason I'm going to say that is because I think it's extremely important that as many positive images that can be out there
Mm,
are out there. I think the opportunity that you have and the relationships that you have
mm.
will make a difference in those who have the opportunity to watch and listen. And I just, I'm very happy for you
Thank you, my friend.
because I know that so many of us will benefit from the opportunity to see the interactions that you have with the people that you will be talking with in this climate that we live in, where all, not all, but most of the images that are uplifting and positive are being removed.
Mm,
And so the challenge for there to be more positive images and encouraging and walks of faith that have risen to the occasion
Mm.
for the hallelujah testimony. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna leave it at that. So I thank you. Thank you for doing. I normally say this at the very end of the conversation. Thank you for doing the work that you do and for being the person who you are. I'm going to say it again later on.
Thank you, my friend.
Our final question for tonight is: you are speaking to the world. What do you want the world to know?
That we have the power to persist, not just, in our hands, and but when we are honest with ourselves and we look at our lives, we've really already demonstrated this resilient gene, if you will, this ability to be resilient. And, let my book be a reinforcement, a tune up to that which already exists within all of us. No matter who you are, no matter where you are, we all have a resilient journey, and we're all on a resilient journey. And my request is, let's do it together.
Fantastic. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Conversation with Tony Mobley is produced by valued audio visual professionals who meet daily on Office Hours Global, hosted by Alex Lindsay. And I just want to add a footnote. Conversation with Tony Mobley is produced by valued audio visual professionals who meet daily on Office Hours Global, hosted by Alex Lindsay. The Office Hours community has been a great supporter of Conversation with Tony Mobley. We're now in sort of a different space. We could not have conversations with Tony Mobley without the support of the Office Hours community. But I also want to let you know that Conversation with Tony Mobley is a product of Tony Mobley. And I think this is the first time that I said that out loud. And the reason that I'm saying it out loud now is because I have been inspired by Dr. McMorris's conversation tonight. And I had not planned to say this, but I'm going to say this tonight. We need support. We encourage you to support Conversation with Tony Mobley because we want to get better. And there is a need for as many possible positive media outlets as possible to be available for people everywhere. The product that we use for Conversation with Tony Mobley is called Memo Live. It is